I never thought sharing a rowboat with someone could turn into one of the most memorable afternoons of my life, but there I was, 2 oars in hand, drifting in the middle of this tiny lake with a guy the first barely knew, and then he said something that knocked me sideways. Okay, let me back up a bit. I'm Mark, 28, and generally pretty chill when it comes to meeting new people. I'm not the strike up a conversation with a stranger type, but sometimes life has its own agenda. This whole thing started a couple weeks ago at a low-key company retreat. Yeah, the usual awkward mix of team-building exercises, forced socializing, and way too much bad coffee. But there was this one moment during a break when I spotted him. Jared works in marketing, same department but in a different city, so we don't cross paths much. The first thing that hit me was how different he seemed from the usual office crowd. Casual but confident, with this easy smile that didn't come off like it was trying too hard. We ended up by the cafeteria vending machine, me fumbling with $2 trying to get a granola bar, and him just laughing and handing over a couple of quarters like it was no big deal. We talked for like 5 minutes about dumb stuff, the weather, the terrible coffee, the fact that the retreat was pretty much a snooze fest. Then he mentioned the lake near the retreat center, how it was perfect for a quick row. I joked that I hadn't been in a rowboat since I was a kid. He challenged me, saying it was easy and fun, and that if I wanted, we could go check it out after the last session. I wasn't expecting to say yes, but I did. And here's where it gets interesting. So later that afternoon, after the group had mostly disbanded, Jared and I found ourselves at the edge of this quiet lake, surrounded by tall trees and that tired summer heat hanging in the air. The rowboats were all lined up, looking less intimidating than I remembered. We picked one and he hopped in first, grinning. "Ever rowed before?" he asked. "Maybe once or twice. I'm probably terrible at it," I admitted. "Perfect. You can be in charge of steering, I'll do the rowing." That sounded like a plan. I sat in the back, nervously gripping the oars while Jared settled in front, muscles already flexing as he pulled the wooden blades through the water. The boat started moving, and for a moment, the whole retreat seemed miles away. The noise, the awkward small talk, the forced smiles. We were just 2 guys on a lake, the sun dipping lower and casting golden light over everything. The water rippled gently, and there was this calm that I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Then, out of nowhere, Jared looked over his shoulder with this serious look that didn't quite fit the peaceful scene. And he said something that made me freeze mid-row. I haven't told anyone this before, but I think I'm falling for you. It's crazy how a few words can change everything in an instant. My heart was pounding, the oars felt heavier, and for the first time that afternoon, the silence between us wasn't just comfortable, it was charged. I blinked, trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. Was this a joke, a dare, or maybe just a weird way to break the ice? But there he was, looking straight at me, no hint of teasing in his eyes. And that's when I realized this rowboat ride was going to be way more than just a simple afternoon on the lake. I sat there, dumbstruck, the oars still in my hands but my arms frozen. Falling for me? I barely knew the guy. I mean, sure, Jared was easy to talk to, and yeah, there was something about the way his smile reached his eyes that made me feel, I don't know, less guarded. But falling? That felt like a lot to drop out of nowhere, especially on a lazy afternoon boat ride. Are you serious? I finally managed to ask, my voice sounding way shakier than I wanted. He nodded, eyes steady on mine. Yeah, I know it sounds wild, and maybe a little crazy, but I haven't felt this way about anyone in a long time. And it's weird because we barely know each other, but something about today. I don't want it to end. I swallowed hard, trying to process everything. Part of me wanted to laugh it off, brush it aside like a weird joke. But the truth was, I felt that too. That inexplicable pull, like I'd been waiting for something without knowing what it was. "Okay, that's a lot," I said, trying to keep the conversation light but honest. "I mean, I like you, Jared. I do. But falling? That's fast." He smiled, a little sheepishly this time. "I get it. I'm not trying to freak you out or rush anything. I just thought if I didn't say it, I'd regret it." There was something so raw and real about that confession. No games, no pretense, just honesty hanging between us on the water. I took a deep breath and pushed the oars slowly, trying to get the boat moving again. The lake was calm, sun dipping lower, shadows stretching longer. "Let's not talk about falling just yet," I said with a small grin. "Maybe we can just start with liking. And maybe more rowing lessons. For me." He laughed, the sound warm and easy. Deal. For the next few minutes, we settled into this comfortable rhythm. Jared rowed, I steered, and we talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, bad habits, the weirdest things about our jobs. It felt surprisingly natural, like we'd known each other way longer than a few weeks. Then, out of nowhere, Jared leaned back and squinted up at the sky. "You know what I love about this place? How it's like a little bubble. No distractions. Just you, me, and this stupid little boat." I nodded, feeling that bubble too. It was like the world had shrunken to just us, and everything else could wait. "Yeah, it's nice," I said softly. "I'm glad you asked me out here." He looked at me, eyes softening. "Me too." That moment, just two guys sharing a rowboat on a quiet lake at sunset, felt like something out of a movie. But it was real, and it was ours. As the light faded, we turned the boat back toward the dock. The silence between us wasn't awkward this time. It was full, like we both knew that whatever this was, it was something special. When we reached the shore, Jared stood up first and offered me his hand. I took it, and for a second, I just held it like it was the most natural thing in the world. Then he smiled and said, "So, same time next week?" I grinned back, feeling a rush of something I hadn't expected today. Definitely. Walking away from the lake that evening, I realized that sometimes the best moments come when you least expect them. Sometimes when you're just sitting in a rowboat and someone says something shocking that turns everything upside down. And honestly, I can't wait to see where this goes. The week that followed felt like a blur in the best possible way. Jared and I texted more than I ever imagined I'd do with a coworker, and every message had this electric undercurrent that made my phone buzz in my pocket like it was alive. We planned another trip to the lake, our rowboat date, as we half joked. Except this time, I was determined not to be the awkward newbie. The day arrived, and I met him at the dock again. He was already there, leaning casually against a tree, the sun catching his hair just right. When I saw that smile, the one that had made me rethink 1,000 things in just an afternoon, I felt my chest tighten, in a good way. "Ready to become a pro rower today?" he teased, ruffling my hair like I was some kid. "I'm ready," I said, trying to sound confident but probably failing. I was still figuring out how to navigate this new thing between us, this strange and thrilling mix of friendship and something more. We grabbed the same boat and pushed off into the lake. This time, I took the oars without hesitation, and to my surprise, I wasn't completely terrible. Jared laughed and cheered me on, his enthusiasm contagious. We raced across the water, the sun warming our backs, and for a moment, I forgot about all the doubts gnawing in my mind. After a while, we stopped near the small island in the middle of the lake. Jared jumped out and pulled the boat close so I could follow him. The island was tiny, just a patch of grass and a few trees, but it felt like our own secret place. We sat side by side on the grass, the boat rocking gently behind us. Jared looked over at me, his expression softer than I'd ever seen. "Mark," he said, his voice low, "I know we're moving fast, and I get it if you're scared or unsure. I just want you to know, I'm here. No pressure, no expectations. Just me." I wanted to tell him that I felt the same way, that his honesty made me want to take a chance, that I was tired of holding back, but words caught in my throat. Instead, I just nodded and smiled, hoping it said enough. We stayed there for a while, watching the ripples in the water, the way the sunlight filtered through the leaves. Jared reached over and took my hand, and I didn't pull away. The warmth of his touch settled something inside me, a quiet reassurance. When it was time to head back, the sun was starting to set. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, and the lake mirrored it perfectly. Rowing back felt different this time. Lighter, like we were both carrying something new and fragile between us, something worth protecting. Back at the dock, we stood close, neither of us rushing to leave. Jared looked down at me, his eyes shining with a mix of hope and something else I couldn't quite name. "Can I see you again? Maybe outside of work stuff?" "Yeah," I said without hesitation. I'd like that. As I walked away that evening, my mind was spinning with all the possibilities. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something real, something I'd been waiting for without knowing it. And honestly, it scared me. But for the first time in a long time, I was ready to jump. After that second afternoon on the lake, things between Jared and me shifted, but not overnight. It wasn't like suddenly we were inseparable or anything. The reality of work, life, and that unavoidable awkwardness of figuring out what we meant to each other settled in. But there was a difference, an undercurrent of something new that made even the mundane moments feel charged. We started grabbing coffee more often, sometimes just the two of us, but sometimes with a couple of coworkers. I think those group hangouts were our way of testing the waters, literally and figuratively. I wasn't totally sure how to navigate this new dynamic, but Jared always seemed to know just how to make me laugh, even when I was fumbling for words. One Thursday evening, after a long day of meetings that had me ready to crash, Jared texted me, "Want to hit that new taco place downtown? My treat." I almost didn't respond. I'm usually a solo dinner kind of guy, but something about his message made me smile. "Sure, 7 p.m. He replied almost instantly. Perfect. When I met him outside the restaurant, he was already waiting, leaning casually against the brick wall, his smile enough to melt any exhaustion I was feeling. We grabbed a table near the window, the noise of the bustling place making it easy to relax. As we ate, the conversation flowed easily. We talked about everything, from favorite childhood memories to the ridiculous things we'd tried to cook. Spoiler, neither of us was great at it. At one point, Jared's eyes softened, and he said, "You know, I never thought I'd find this with someone from work. It's like a cliche, but here we are." I laughed, feeling the tension ease out of my shoulders. "Yeah, it's kind of crazy how life throws curveballs." He nodded. "I'm glad you didn't run away when I said I was falling for you in that rowboat." "Honestly, I was terrified," I admitted. "But I'm glad you said it." There was a pause, and then Jared reached across the table, his hand covering mine. The warmth of his touch sent a familiar surge through me. "Whatever happens next, I want you to know I'm serious about this." I squeezed his hand gently. Me too. The weeks that followed were a delicate balancing act. Workdays filled with casual glances and subtle smiles, evenings spent going out or just hanging out in his tiny apartment with too many books and an impressive collection of vinyl records. Slowly, we built something between us, a quiet kind of connection that didn't need grand gestures to feel real. But as with anything real, it wasn't without its challenges. There were moments when I'd catch myself hesitating, wondering if I was moving too fast, or if I was even ready to let someone in. Jared was patient, never pushing, always checking in with me, and that made all the difference. One night, maybe a month after that first rowboat ride, we were sitting on his couch, a playlist humming softly in the background. I'd had a rough day, one of those where everything feels off, and Jared just held me. No words, no questions, just quiet comfort. "I'm glad I said it," he whispered after a while. "Telling you I was falling. It was scary, but it was worth it." I looked up at him, my heart full. "You made me believe that maybe falling isn't such a bad thing after all." He smiled and leaned in, and in that moment, with the city lights flickering outside the window, I felt like I'd finally found a place where I belonged. Looking back, it's funny how a simple rowboat ride led to all of this. Life's weird like that. Sometimes the most unexpected moments become the ones you never forget. And honestly, I'm grateful every day that Jared decided to take that chance on me. After that night on Jared's couch, things felt like they were settling into a rhythm, but not a boring one. The kind of rhythm that makes you look forward to even the smallest moments. Like those lazy Sunday mornings where we'd make awful coffee and laugh about how neither of us knows how to use a French press properly. Or the way Jared would leave little notes on my desk at work, cheesy jokes or just a quick thinking of you. But as cozy as all that was, there was this nagging question in the back of my mind that I hadn't brought up yet. How would this work with the office and everyone knowing? Neither of us said it directly at first, maybe because we were both a little scared. I mean, I'd never dated a coworker before, and the idea of mixing work and something so personal felt like walking a tightrope. What if it went wrong? What if people started treating us differently? Or worse, what if it didn't work out and I had to see him every day like nothing happened? One Thursday afternoon, we were walking back from lunch, Jared's hand casually brushing mine when I finally blurted it out. Have you thought about, what happens if people find out? He stopped and looked at me, eyebrows raised like I'd just asked if the sky was blue. Yeah, of course I have. But honestly, I don't care what people think. I like you, Mark. And if that means dealing with some awkward questions or office gossip, so be it. His confidence made me smile, but I still felt hesitant. I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet, I admitted. He squeezed my hand. We don't have to rush. We'll figure it out together. That kind of support was exactly what I needed, even if the fear didn't disappear overnight. A couple weeks later, we decided to test the waters with a small lunch outing, inviting another coworker or two. It felt like a safe way to introduce the idea without making it a big deal. The lunch was surprisingly easy, lots of jokes, some teasing, but mostly just normal conversation. No awkward stares or whispered gossip. It gave me hope. One Friday evening, after work, Jared invited me over to his place to cook dinner. He had this goofy grin on his face when I arrived, and I was immediately suspicious. "What's with the smile?" I asked. "Oh, you'll see," he said, dragging me into the kitchen. Turns out, he'd planned a full cooking challenge for us. He'd picked out recipes neither of us had tried before, and we were to compete making the best version. The kitchen quickly turned into a mess of spilled sauce, burnt edges, and laughter that echoed through the apartment. At one point, I was chopping vegetables while Jared danced around with a wooden spoon, singing off-key. "Stop it, you're going to burn the garlic," I warned, but I couldn't keep the smile off my face. He leaned over, brushing his lips against my ear. "Only if you don't taste it first." That moment, so casual, so unexpected, was the kind of thing I'd replay in my head later. The way the warmth of him made all the fears and doubts seem miles away. As the evening wound down, we collapsed on the couch, exhausted but happy, plates half empty on the coffee table. "I think you won," Jared said with a smirk. "Your burnt garlic might be my favorite dish." I laughed, then grew serious for a second. I was scared about this. Scared about us. About what people might say. He turned to face me, eyes wide and honest. And I'm still scared sometimes. But being with you, it makes all that worth it. He took my hand again, fingers intertwining as if they fit perfectly. "Me too," he whispered. That night, as I walked home under the city lights, I realized something important. Love isn't about being fearless. It's about having someone beside you who makes the scary parts manageable. Someone who makes you feel like you're not alone in the middle of whatever chaos life throws your way. And with Jared, I was ready to face whatever came next. Because sometimes, the best love stories start with a rowboat ride and a single, shocking confession. But they keep going because two people decide to take a chance. Together. A few weeks after that cooking disaster turned victory at Jared's apartment, things between us felt more real. And honestly, a little messier. You know how when something's new and exciting, you're all butterflies and sparkles, but then everyday life starts sneaking in with its own set of challenges? Yeah, that was us. Work started getting busier, deadlines piling up, and suddenly those simple texts and stolen moments felt harder to come by. Jared was juggling his own stuff too, and we both noticed the way our us time was shrinking. It wasn't a crisis or anything. Just that awkward phase where you realize real relationships mean real effort, especially when you're trying to keep it somewhat under wraps at the office. One Thursday evening, I was sitting at my desk late, mind racing over a presentation due the next morning, when I got a message from Jared. "Can we talk?" Not work stuff. Important. My heart did that stupid little flip. Important? That could mean anything. I messaged back. "Yeah, what's up?" He replied quickly. "Later? Over coffee or something?" We met at a quiet cafe near the office, the kind of place with dim lights and that low hum of indie music. He was already there when I walked in, looking a little more serious than usual. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hey," he replied, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath. Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about us, about how we've been juggling work and everything else. I nodded, heart pounding. Me too. He took my hands in his, voice low. I don't want to rush or pressure you, but I also don't want to keep hiding. I want to be open about us, not just for me, but for you too. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling over me. Being out with coworkers wasn't something I'd planned on anytime soon. I'd always been pretty private about my personal life, and the thought of office gossip or awkward questions made my stomach twist. I'm scared, I admitted quietly. Scared about what people might say, how it might change things. Jared squeezed my hands gently. I get that, but I also think we deserve to be real with ourselves and others. And I'm here, no matter what. His confidence gave me strength, but the fear still lingered. Can we take it slow? Maybe start by telling a few close people? See how it goes? He smiled, relief and gratitude shining in his eyes. Absolutely. That night marked the beginning of a new chapter. We started telling a handful of trusted coworkers, people we knew would be supportive. The reactions were mostly positive, some surprised but happy for us. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward moments and a couple of sideways glances, but overall, it felt liberating. One evening, about a month later, Jared and I were at a small company gathering, a casual dinner after work. It was the first time we showed up as a couple in front of most of the team, and I won't lie, my nerves were on edge. As we walked in hand, a few people smiled and gave us thumbs up. One of my closest colleagues nudged me and whispered, "You guys are adorable." That simple acceptance made me realize how much I'd been holding back. Halfway through the evening, Jared leaned in and whispered, "See? Not so scary." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Later, when we stepped outside, the night air cool against our skin, Jared pulled me close. "I'm proud of us," he said softly. "Me too," I replied, heart full. Walking home that night, I thought about how far we'd come, from that awkward rowboat ride on a quiet lake to standing in front of our coworkers, openly us. It wasn't always easy, but with Jared, every step felt worth it. Love, I realized, isn't just about heart-fluttering moments or grand confessions. It's about courage. The courage to be vulnerable, to face fears, and to choose someone every day, even when it's scary. And as I looked at Jared's smiling face in the streetlight, I knew I was ready for whatever came next. Because, finally, I wasn't rowing alone. After that night, something shifted between Jared and me, like the air cleared and we could finally breathe a little easier. Coming out at work, even just to a handful of people, was scary as hell, but it was also a relief. The weight of hiding started to lift, replaced by this quiet sense of freedom I hadn't realized I was craving. But of course, life doesn't just hand you all the answers in one neat package. A few weeks later, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment, scrolling through my phone, when a message popped up from one of the coworkers we hadn't told yet. It was a simple question. "Hey man, just curious. What's really going on with you and Jared?" Heard some whispers. My heart sank. I hadn't expected the office gossip to spread so fast. The message wasn't hostile, but the curiosity felt invasive. I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Later that day, I told Jared what happened. His face tightened for a moment, then softened. "Yeah, that's probably going to happen," he said quietly. "People can't help themselves sometimes. But we control what we say and how we handle it." I nodded, but the unease lingered. The next morning, I showed up at work, trying to act like any other day. But I noticed the subtle shifts, the way colleagues glanced my way, the quiet murmurs when I walked past. I felt exposed, vulnerable. During a meeting, Jared caught my eye and gave me a small, reassuring smile. That simple gesture reminded me I wasn't alone. That afternoon, I found myself pulled aside by my manager, who'd heard the rumors. "Mark, I want you to know this doesn't change anything," he said, voice genuine. "You're a valuable part of the team, and I support you." That moment meant more than I expected. It was a reminder that while some fears feel big, people can surprise you. Over the next few days, the whispers faded, replaced by normalcy. Jared and I kept leaning on each other, navigating the awkwardness with humor and honesty. One evening after a long day, we decided to go back to the lake. It felt like the right place to reset, to remind ourselves where this all began. We rented a rowboat, the sun low and golden, just like months ago. As we pushed off, Jared reached for my hand. "You okay?" he asked. I squeezed his fingers. "Yeah, I think I'm finally ready for whatever comes next." We rowed out to the middle of the lake, the world quiet except for the soft splash of oars and the occasional bird call. Jared looked at me, eyes reflecting the water's shimmer. "You've changed everything for me, Mark. You made me believe in something real." I smiled, feeling warmth spread through me. "And you made me brave." We sat there for a while, just holding hands. No need for words. In that moment, I realized that love isn't just about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about showing up, being vulnerable, and facing the world together, even when it's messy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with colors only nature could create, I felt a quiet certainty. No matter what happened, at work, in life, or with us, I wasn't afraid anymore, because with Jared by my side, I was ready to row through anything. That evening on the lake felt like a quiet turning point. As the sky faded from gold to deep blue, Jared and I sat in the stillness. The world slowed down just enough for all the noise, inside my head and out there in life, to fade away. It was one of those moments where nothing hugely dramatic happens, but everything feels exactly right. We didn't say much, just leaned into each other, fingers intertwined, watching the sun disappear behind the trees. It wasn't a grand declaration or some sweeping gesture. It was simply us, comfortable and steady, like two pieces finally fitting together after a long, complicated puzzle. When we paddled back to shore, neither of us was in a rush to get out of the boat. The air was cooler now, and Jared pulled his jacket tighter around his shoulders. I took a deep breath, feeling a calm settle over me. "Thank you," I said softly, "for everything. For being patient when I was scared. For being honest. For this." I waved at the lake, at the quiet between us, at the whole messy, wonderful thing we were building. He smiled, that easy, genuine smile that had drawn me in from the start. "No, thank you. You've made me better, Mark. Made me want to try harder, be braver." It struck me then how much we'd both grown, how what started as a random invite to row a boat had turned into something real and unexpected. We'd faced the awkwardness, the fear, and even the whispers. And here we were, still standing together. Later, walking back toward the retreat center's parking lot, Jared slipped his hand into mine without hesitation. The simple gesture felt like a promise, a quiet vow to keep choosing each other, come what may. I realized then that love doesn't have to be complicated or perfect. Sometimes it's just two people who decide to keep rowing, together, even when the waters get choppy. And honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way.